If you can hear this, turn to channel 14. Are we on? Okay. Good evening and welcome to News from the Dome. I'm your host, Zip Osborne. If you're able to tune in, then you know we're not broadcasting from our normal channel. I'm sorry for the disruption. It's been a crazy day for Elka and me. Our journey seems to have taken a dark turn, and I guess it's appropriate to say we're lucky to be alive. You won't believe where we are, but let me tell you how we got here first. We had been at the Zorcorp mining facility on Tarian 347, trying to get an insider's look at the operation, when we were put under guard for apparently asking the wrong questions. Well, Elka and I had come up with a pretty solid plan for ditching our escorts at breakfast and interviewing some of the miners. We were still holding out hope that we would get some information leading us to those missing from the dome. Unfortunately, as soon as we left our rooms, our escorts told us that our tour and time at the facility was over and that we'd be returning to the dome immediately. I had not anticipated this. There was so much more to see, and I had more questions now than I did when we first got here. But I was also looking forward to a change of clothes. Trying to look on the bright side, maybe our studio was open, and maybe we could get back to some proper programming. Maybe Mayor Dixon had found the intruders, though I hadn't seen any information on the matter come over my ring. Without even a stop for breakfast, we were immediately escorted to the hover train station, where the 7:45 train was waiting for us. Our hoverboards were being stowed as we stepped onto the platform. Elka and I took a seat and settled in for the 2-hour ride home. We checked our rings for messages, missed calls, any updates on the state of our studio, and we took some time to discuss how we wanted to put our story about the mines together. Eventually, I dozed off. I'm not sure how much time had gone by when Elka nudged me awake. I was irritated at being disturbed, but the concerned look on Elka's face made me realize I better give her my attention. She gestured around the coach and brought to my attention that we were all alone. In fact, there didn't seem to be anyone on the train at all. We were both suddenly aware of an eerie silence that filled the air. But of course, this was all silly. We were on an early morning train leaving Zorcorp for the dome. It was a reverse commute, so it made sense to me that there might not be anyone else on board. I looked out the window and saw the scenery flashing by as our train was traveling at full speed, probably 800 kilometers an hour. Elka snapped at me. "Where's the crew?" she asked. It was at that very moment when we were suddenly overwhelmed by a loud crash. Elka and I had spontaneously ducked under our seat. When we came up to see what had happened, we saw a hole had been ripped open in the roof of our coach. A haze of smoke hung in the air. We sat there stunned as 3 ropes dropped in through the hole, followed by 3 masked bipeds, armed and clad in all black. They turned their attention to us, and one of them, the leader I suppose, told us if we wanted to live, then we needed to come with them now. Well, scared stiff, Elka and I didn't move a muscle. Then the other 2 approached us and grabbed us by the arms. I was suddenly overwhelmed by the thought that these must be the same intruders who burst into our studio. We were in trouble. Then the leader shouted, "There's no time to explain. We need to get off this train now, with or without you." To my surprise, Elka got to her feet and ran with her companion to the ropes. Well, Elka has a sense for things, so I followed her lead. We were hooked onto the ropes and raised out through the roof. I couldn't believe my eyes. As we cleared the roof, Elka and I watched the hover train fly right off the rails. The train slid hard into the ground. The cars twisted as they scraped along. Then boom! The entire train exploded in a ball of fire, the burning cars tumbling across the orange surface. I looked up and saw that we were being hoisted into a hover ship. Several pairs of eyes were staring down at us from the edges of the hatch. I was terrified. Elka and I were helped aboard. Once on, we sat there on the steel floor as the hatch closed. Then a humanoid with a kind smile approached us. At that moment, I kind of felt at ease. Then the son of a gun pulled out a syringe and stuck it in my neck. I was out. When I woke, I found myself lying on a cot in a small cabin, more like a sardine can. I heard a rumbling sound, and the room was slightly shaking. I was just getting oriented when the door slid open and a big brute of a man filled the doorway. He told me in an accent that I wasn't familiar with that she would see me now. I didn't know what he was talking about. All I could say was, "She who?" "Her Highness," he said, "Queen Nadia." Elka and I had been pulled from the train by the pirates. But why? Were they kidnapping us? Were they behind the studio break-in? I certainly hoped that Big Bob wasn't right about the pirates and the Skags working together. While I was still frightened about my predicament, the idea of actually meeting Queen Nadia sent a surge of excitement through my veins. Not many people have ever met the Pirate Queen. There are no photos. Descriptions of her vary wildly. Some doubt she's even real. So the big guy escorted me down a hall and through a bulkhead, where I found myself in another hall, but this one looked like it had been thrown together with scraps of sheet metal, completely different from the clean lines of the hall we had just left. Then I was led up several steps that opened up into a hover train car, but I wasn't on a hover train, and the windows were all covered in steel plates. Whatever this thing was, it seemed to be put together with random parts. Huge welds connected the hover train car to the stairs I had just ascended. We finally stepped onto the bridge, and that's when I saw her. Queen Nadia, in the flesh. The big guy announced me, and Nadia swiveled around in her chair. She was a sight to see. Perhaps 30 years old. Beautiful, I thought. It was hard to tell exactly. Her face was painted white. Her eyes were framed by thick black eyeliner that blended into purple eyeshadow that streaked past her temples. Rouge covered her cheeks, and her lips were painted berry. She reminded me of the painted ladies from Tatar. She was cloaked in long, colorful silk robes, and atop her head was a leather helmet with some sort of built-in binoculars. I also realized at that moment that we were no longer flying. We were on some sort of hover vehicle. Past Nadia was a large window that looked out over the flat orange landscape. The rumbling I had first heard and felt in my cabin was still present. Nadia smiled and welcomed me aboard. I asked her where I was, and she told me that I was aboard the HMS Nadia. A little narcissistic, I thought. That's when I heard Elka yelling at someone, demanding that they let go of her. Elka marched onto the bridge, took one look at Nadia, and demanded to know what was going on. At that, the queen threw her head back and waved us off. She turned her attention back to the landscape in front of her. Well, those two certainly didn't get off on the right foot. A voice came from across the room. Elka and I looked over to see what is best described as a humanoid-looking robot. He had shimmering gold skin that had the look and feel of a circuit board. He announced himself as Finch, the ship's engineer. Finch tapped his ring and a projection came up showing Mayor Big Bob Dixon addressing the citizens of the dome. In typical Big Bob fashion, he was using the dome itself as his screen. His big jowly face was overhead, staring down at the crowd from one end of the town to the other. I watched as Big Bob announced that Elka and I had been killed in a horrible train wreck. Elka and I stared at each other for a moment as we took it in. Everyone thinks we're dead. Finch suggested we may want to keep it that way. He suspected Zorcorp had sabotaged the train and for some reason wanted us out of the way. I asked him why they saved us, and he said they have spies at Zorcorp and they had received a message that we were in danger, and for some reason unknown to him, we needed to be kept alive. Elka was getting frustrated. She exclaimed so that everyone could hear, "What if we want to leave?" That's when Nadia re-engaged. She shot back, "Then leave. You're not a prisoner here, but don't expect us to save you again." Then she told us that whatever our choice, it would have to wait. At the moment, they were a little busy. She turned away and I followed her gaze toward the window, where I saw a Warlabeast caravan in the distance, traveling across the orange landscape. As we closed in on the caravan, I could see the packers panicking, trying desperately to get the beasts to run. But the animals were loaded down with cargo. There was no escape. The steel behemoth we were traveling in came to a screeching halt in front of the caravan. The packers took cover behind the Warlabeasts and aimed their weapons at the pirates' ship. Nadia nodded to one of her crew and he pushed a button on a panel in front of him. I watched as a burst of laser beams shot out from the ship and smacked into the ground in front of the herd. At once, the packers dropped their weapons and raised their hands. Nadia jumped from her seat and strode past us. Several of the crew followed behind her. A minute later, a band of pirates, led by Nadia herself, raced across the surface on hoverboards towards the caravan. It was quite a spectacle. After it was all over, the pirates had taken half of everything the caravan was hauling and sent them on their way. Later, Elka and I were invited to join the pirates in celebration. We were escorted to what they called their great hall. Queen Nadia was seated at her throne, where she presided over an evening of drinking, dancing, and feasting. As the night went on and the drinks went down, things got rowdy. Nadia encouraged her crew to challenge one another to a wide variety of competitions, the favorite being outright fighting. At one point, they tried to get me and Elka to fight one another, and they were giving her odds. Elka got a kick out of that. I saw at least 3 noses get broken, and what must have been a dozen concussions. But everyone was having a good time, especially Nadia. It's time to sign off. Oh, I'm being told I have to stop broadcasting now, but keep tuned to Channel 14. When I'm able to broadcast again, I'll tell you the rest of the story. So until next time, as I like to say, good night and good luck. Hey, this isn't our theme music. Well, it's probably the best they could do on short notice. We've lost all our equipment. So it'll have to do. We'll tell you the rest of the story next time. Good night. We at the Dome appreciate you listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share, subscribe, and like. Thank you.